Hi everybody, this is Jason Major with Biblical Cinematic Universe, and today I'm going to be talking about the Gospel of according to St. Matthew from 1964 by Pasolini, directed by Pasolini, which is an Italian film. So there are three versions that I've seen, and there's a fourth version that you can find for sale. One version is the unrestored version, which is on this collection, which included a whole bunch of different other Bible movies unrestored. It was on disc 2 of this collection, which included Power of Resurrection, I Beheld His Glory, Heal number 1, and it has the restored black and white version of this. I saw a restored color dubbed version, which is edited to about an hour and a half, in 2024 I watched on Tubi.com, and then another one which was the Gospel according to St. Matthew, unedited, restored though in black and white, and that was on YouTube in 2024. And I also found out that there is a Criterion collection, which Criterion is like very much for the film scholars. They have a version of the Gospel according to St. Matthew that you can find, but it'd be really more expensive. But it'd have like also a lot of juicy special features and on commentary and everything else. So I'm going to briefly go over every three ones. So this is an introduction to the movie, not so much the filmmaker, and it's more of a quick overview. First, let's go with the black and white unrestored. This is probably the weakest of the three. Whereas the film itself, I'm going to spoil and review and say is like more of an 8 out of 10. The movie in black and white unrestored is like a 6 out of 10. And that's because of the fact that unrestored, unlike except for people like myself who are film scholars and really interested in the Bible, you're probably going to be a little bit, like off. It's going to be like I can't see in the dark. Some of the black and white stuff in the dark is like you almost can't see the figures. There's literally parts where like there's a lot of like grain and stuff, and it's distracting to the movie itself, and it takes away from the movie. But the movie itself is in a bargain bin. If you found this in a used movie store or a bookstore, and you found all these movies, and this has 10 different Bible movies, it's still worth it getting in on this, I think. And you may still want to check it out if that's something you don't care, where you're like, I don't care if it's not in 4K or restored or something. You still might get something out of it. And then I'll get to the plot of the movie in a minute, but we'll do the comparison first. The color version is the one I would recommend for most people. It's about an hour and a half. It's in vivid color. It's dubbed in English. Some of the dubbing characters work better than others. For example, Jesus is really a fiery revolutionary in that version. Other characters like the angel, Gabriel, is kind of like, "Oh, Joseph, don't be afraid. Take Mary as your wife." It's very plain. So it depends on the character. Like John the Baptist isn't bad, and other characters aren't bad. But the dubbing, it is helpful for those who don't usually watch subtitled movies, and it's probably the most accessible because it is in color. You can see the vibrancy. It is restored in color as well, so you can see the vibrancy. It's all filmed in Italian settings, which is kind of cool. And it's a really fiery, fast-paced movie by doing that. And then you have finally, you have the one I've seen is the black and white restored 2 hours and about 2 hours, over 2 hours film, which has all the scenes, but it's in the original Italian. Jesus still comes across as a very fiery revolutionary, but he also has some compassion and peace, and it's just really a really cool performance, and that's probably the best of the film historian ones. Now, in terms of the movie itself, it's cool in the way that Pasolini, who is a Marxist and not necessarily of faith, creating this film using only the Gospel according to Matthew, but he only selects certain stories which presents his version of Matthew, of the Gospel of Matthew. Meaning, in this one, he's very much a socialist revolutionary. He's very fiery. Jesus does have compassion. He does do miracles in this, and as well as he's still the Son of God. It's still a faithful adaptation. Also, interestingly enough, it's filmed all in Italy, so although it's supposed to be back then, it kind of almost feels like 1960s Italy as well, even though it's supposed to be like 33 AD, because it's all Italian actors and everything. The guy who does John the Baptist is very like, I am John the Baptist, and it's very like, he is fire in his eyes, man. There's fire in his eyes. Great performance. There's a lot of it. He's filmed it in a neo-realistic style, it's called, and that style means that everything looks like a documentary. It looks very much like a documentary. There's certain parts where there's no even dialogue. So, for example, at the beginning of the movie, it's not a spoiler, Mary and Joseph, it's not filmed with a lot of dialogue. It's just filmed with facial reactions and close-ups. And that is just like, when you really think about what's going into there, he communicates a lot through the emotions of the actors, the faces of the actors. And same thing with Jesus. Instead of showing large crowds during like especially in an early part of the movie, it's just headshots, like Jesus headshot, and then another Jesus headshot, which is like slightly different, and another Jesus headshot, so that you can tell that days have passed. But like he's saying these scriptures fast paced. There's a lot of like cutting from behind, almost like you're following Jesus literally. Like it is literally filmed like a documentary style. Another thing I thought was interesting is that for the 1960s, this is probably the point where Jesus films from before that a lot of times focused on the divinity of Christ, so he's portrayed as more holy, more out a little bit distant in terms of his acting style, the acting style they had for Jesus actors for a lot of the movies before the 60s. This Jesus is definitely Jesus. He's the Son of God, but he's like very, like I said, he's very gets into emotion of anger and righteous anger, mind you, and it's a righteous anger against the authority figures, about abuses of power, and that's a very big, strong theme in this version of the movie. Is how he is this version of Jesus is upset with abuses of power that are going on against the poor and the downtrodden. So that's really kind of cool the way he selects certain stories to showcase that. And again, there are miracles in this movie. I won't spoil that, but there are miracles. Spoiler for Jesus movie. Yeah, it's over 50 years old. He does rise from the dead. I know it's a shocker, but some movies he doesn't. Like, the end of Passion. And that's another thing that's really well done, is that the way they shot that, the crucifixion. The crucifixion, I'll be honest with you though, the Passion, the crucifixion is a very short part of the movie. So this is a Life of Jesus movie. But I highly recommend this. I give both the color version and the black and white. The color version I give 8 out of 10, even though it's shorter. And the black and white restored version I give 8 out of 10, even though it's longer and has more dialogue in it. It is the best of the three, but if you want color, you're going to have to get the one that's edited, unless by the time of this video, there's one that's restored 2 hours with the color. Maybe there's multiple variations, one that's colored and in subtitles, for example. I don't know. But it is worth checking out, and I'm going to be watching other Gospel of Matthew films that come out later and kind of comparing them, so that'll be very interesting. But if you want, this movie also was recommended by Martin Scorsese, so he got a lot of passion from this as well. And so I highly recommend checking this out on the internet and giving it a look, and just really allow yourself to watch a story and then think about how they're presenting the Jesus of this movie. Thanks. I'll talk to you again.